All right. You all ready to get started here? Looks like a little bit of a lighter crowd again. I don't know if it's the time of year or if it's the weather or if it's the topic or if it's the president or what it is, but a few less people. But anyway, thanks for coming out. Appreciate you all coming. Welcome to the December Lancaster Real Estate Investment Group. I think we got a handful of people here for the very first time. Who's here for the first time? Yeah, got a few. Thanks for coming out. Most of you guys know me, but for those of you that don't, my name is Jake Byler. I've been a part of this group for quite a while. Been hosting the group for about 6 years. Been a full-time real estate investor for about 14 years. Been a landlord for probably about 18 years. And one of the most helpful things that I would say I have done over the years in my investing and real estate journey has been getting around a group of people like this. So it's kind of a big deal. Back when some of us got started, like me and Eli King and my brother and some of us, we had no idea there was anything like this that you could go to and actually learn and hear from people that had done this kind of stuff in the past. And when we figured that out, why we went to quite a few meetings, and when we got to talking to someone that had already done all this stuff, why Eli would tell you, like, we just kept asking questions and didn't stop. So anyway, all of you guys being here is what makes this valuable and full of energy. And I was just talking to somebody before the meeting started and just talking about how when you get into a solid room full of people, when you get to know people and stuff, when you run into a problem, whether you're doing a flip or a rehab or cybersecurity maybe or whatever it may be, there is almost always someone in the room that has already had that problem and has been through it, or they know someone that has. Hopefully this will not happen, but there is a very good chance that one of us or multiple of us in here tonight are going to get hacked or something at some time in the future. And you're going to think back to this meeting and what you heard, and you're probably not even going to remember what you heard, but you're going to be like, who was that guy that spoke? Who was that guy that talked about whatever? So anyway, hopefully that doesn't happen, but it could. So anyway, as you know, this is a free meeting. You did not have to pay to get in here. We have some sponsors that paid for us to rent the room. Our sponsors for this year are Molly from Lanka Federal Credit Union, Jeff Moeller, he's a private lender, been part of this group from the very beginning. Joe Liofsky, Compass Property Management, he's the one that started this group about a dozen years ago. Dave Wolf, Principal Mortgage Group. Chet Lapp, Providence Abstracting, he's a title company. And a friend of mine, Benyo Esch, is a local realtor. So those are our sponsors for 2024. So I'm assuming most of you guys have either read the email or heard the call blast or something, so you know the topic is around scammers, hackers, fraud, cybersecurity, all of that stuff. We're going to be bumping around a bit to kind of various different aspects of that, and honestly, there's a pretty good chance that many of us are going to go out here with more questions than answers and maybe a little bit freaked out. That is not the goal. But hopefully it'll bring some awareness to some of the things that happen out there, how we can prevent them, how we can learn from them, and all of that. So going to be a bit of a variety of different things. We're going to have a couple individuals share some specific experiences, which I'm going to start with that in just a minute. And then we're going to have rweeber from Regal Abstract, title company, share for a bit. And then probably the biggest portion of the evening will be Kordel Eberly, Eberly Systems. They have a business around protecting, I guess, businesses from cybersecurity, all this kind of stuff, which you're going to learn pretty quick. I don't even really know this language, right? I just kind of know it's a problem. I don't understand near all of the stuff that goes with it, but that's why we're here. We're here to learn. So I am going to show you or share a quick story. I mentioned this briefly at the last meeting and maybe prior, but my brother Jonas Jr. had an incident about a year or two ago where he sent a check in the mail to an individual The individual called him a while later, was kind of apologetic. He's like, "Hey, I didn't get your check for last month," and so my brother pulled up his online banking, and he was like, saw that there was a problem. So what had happened? So images might not be perfect, but this will help. So this is the check that he sent to this individual. I blacked out some things for obvious reasons, but as you can see, the check is made out for $832, $833. The reason he even had this picture is because he had wrote a note to this individual and included a gift card, and for some reason decided to take a picture of it before he sent it. Well, when this individual called him and notified him that he hadn't gotten his check, he looked in his online banking and he found this image. So look at the check number, 2106. You can see that right there. It's the same check. The signature actually looks the same. If you want to compare the signatures for a minute, the portion of the signature that you can see looks the same. But the check was washed and written out to a different person for a much higher amount and deposited. Because he had this image, he was able to turn it into the bank, Citadel Federal Credit Union. They reimbursed him. I don't know if they took the loss or who did, but that's what happened to him. Now, I don't know, but I have a feeling the fact that, oops, too early for that one. I have a feeling the fact that that gift card was in there might have been why it got snagged out of the mail. And then they found this check and they knew how to wash the check and rewrite it. So that's what they did. And then you might be wondering, well, how do we avoid something like that? And I don't know. I don't know how you avoid it, but positive pay? Okay, never heard of it. So that's the first one. Next, I'm going to invite John Lapp up to talk a little bit about IRS scams and awareness around that, right?
Yes. So a couple common things that happen, just around the IRS, people impersonating the IRS, is the phone scams, people calling in threatening. If you ever get a threatening phone call from the IRS, it's not going to be a real phone call, so just hang it up. Don't worry about it, because the IRS will never call. They will never call demanding for money. The other thing is, if you ever get a request, not even just from the IRS, but from anyone to pay in any weird way, like gift cards or anything like that, it's probably a scam. But with the IRS, if it's threatening, or even a phone call or an email, that's not going to be the way that they contact you, and they will never ask for sensitive information. Fake tax notices. If there's a notice that, we had a client that got a form. I have it here. Form 4956 in the mail, basically asking them for their business information, and ask them to pay $107 and send it back to them. And there's nothing like Form 4956, So it's just the thing right now is they're getting more and more creative, and they're going to do anything they can to either get information out of you or get money out of you. So be very careful. Don't give them your hard-earned money just because they send a letter or they scare you. And one of the things they do have is a scare tactic. That's how they try to get you, is by fear. Things that the IRS will never do. They will never demand immediate payment without giving you an opportunity to appeal. They will never call to request payment through unusual methods of like gift card, prepaid cards. They will never threaten to bring a local police or any law enforcement for non-payment, and they will never initiate contact through email, text, social media, or a phone call. The first line of contact will always be a letter in the mail, and if you do get a letter in the mail, please do not ignore it and think it's, and think it's scam. But, find someone, forward it to the accountant, or find someone to verify if it is actually something that needs to, have your attention, or if it doesn't. Because there's some times where, we like to, if there is a letter, we like to know it as soon as we can so that we can reply to it. We like to be courteous and just follow up and make sure that we're following through with the correct procedures, and never assuming that, it's just junk because it came from the IRS. Consult with a trusted representative. One of the things that you're going to see being encouraged is, and probably it's at some point going to be maybe mandatory, I don't know, is the IP pin. So the IRS is pushing for an IP pin for the e-file, where you would set up an online account, and if you do have an online IRS account, you can go on there, request an IP pin, and then that pin gets used to file your electronic tax return. I'm seeing a couple emails came out from the IRS in the last month or two, encouraging people to set up their IP pins, and I'm sure that they're going to start pushing it harder and harder, in the coming years. And then I got to give you a little bit of an update on the FinCEN BOI, because it's the topic I love. So apparently the Texas court blocked it yesterday and deemed it unconstitutional. So there's a good chance it's going to the Supreme Court. What's going to happen there? If anybody knows. So now we got a month before our mandatory filing, or we start getting penalized, and it just got deemed unconstitutional by a Texas court. So who knows where that'll go? But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jones. Very good. A couple of things to think about there. I'm probably not the only one in the room that would say this, but any type of fraud and stuff just really angers me. But there is one type of scams, fraud, that we've probably all heard of, and that's when they target older people that don't know how to deal with this stuff. So our next story, Jesse, you can come on up, is going to involve some of that. So it's my friend Jesse Stolzfuss. He's going to share a story with us.
Yeah, so the first one, there's actually two. One, they actually both involve me, but the first one happened when I was either 16 or 18, I forget. I might have been 17. But it was on a Microsoft computer type of software thing. They sent us too much money, and we were supposed to send so much back. And luckily my dad got involved because I was going to send the money back, and I think it might have been his money. I don't know. But anyway, that didn't quite go through. But the one that did go through was my grandmother got a phone call. We were down at the beach, so we weren't even around. But she got a phone call that I was in a really bad accident, and they needed the money now to, I guess, I don't know what, release me or something, I don't know. And she sent all cash. So it, went bye-bye. But yeah, I asked her for the story today. She said they called, and what got her was they had her full name and my full name, and she just, just kind of, I guess, freaked out, the fear tactic thing, whatever. And so yeah, that's the two scams that happened.
You know how much money that she paid to them?
I don't know that.
I mean, a couple thousand?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how did she pay it?
So she went to the bank, got the cash out, put it in an official envelope, and sent it.
While she was on the phone?
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Many of us would say, well, you shouldn't do that, right? But hey, if you don't know, you don't know.
Yep.
So, okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Matt Garman, are you in the room? Yep, you did come in. So Matt's got a little story for us. You can come on up. That is not 10 years ago. Some of this is from less than 10 hours ago. So tell us what's going on with the hackers in your life.
Yeah, well, I was the lucky pick on their list to be hit for a scam. I advertise most of my apartments on Facebook Marketplace, and it's just the way I've done it. I haven't got any management software yet. And so I got a message on my Messenger app, and it looked official and everything. It had the Facebook logo and everything. Said that we're going to suspend your account due to violating Facebook guidelines. Looked 100% legit. And it said you have 24 hours to appeal this, or we're going to suspend your account. So I thought about letting it play out. Well, instead I had time and I appealed it. And when I was appealing it, they wanted me to enter my Facebook credentials to make sure it's me. Well, that's apparently where they got me. And they went in and changed my username, my email, and then from there on, every time I tried to log in again, they would get the new password and they would just shortcut me and stay in charge. So do not buy Bitcoin off of my Facebook. I am not advertising Bitcoin, but apparently somebody is. And according to them, I am pretty majorly into it. So yeah, I messed around with it for a long time, stayed up late nights twice, headaches, stressed out, thought they were into my Gmail account, so I changed all those passwords. That ended up being a big old mess. After 2 days of trying to figure this out, I finally called a tech guy, a friend of mine. And my advice in this whole thing would be call the professionals right away. Save yourself a lot of headache, a lot of stress. Within an hour, he had it all figured out. The Facebook, I might get back, I might not, but he was able to. Facebook will ask for ID if you want to get it back. Well, I didn't trust sending that. He looked at it and goes, this is 100% legitimate. He sent it, they emailed back, said, well, 48 hours, we'll have a response for you. So I'm waiting to hear on that. I guess another lesson learned, maybe Facebook is not a good choice to exclusively advertise all your apartments on, because when they take you down, you have no way of renting out your apartments. So
what would have happened if you wouldn't have done anything? Like when you got the notice and you couldn't get on Facebook anymore, instead of pursuing it like you did, if you would have just not done anything, would you, after a couple of days, just been able to get back on Facebook again?
I was still able to get on. They said they will suspend it. If I would have left it play out, probably nothing would have happened. If it would have been legitimate, they would have suspended it, and then I could have dealt with it. So, yeah. And I'm pretty sharp when picking up on scams. Emails and stuff, I never reply to that stuff. But this one, it looked 100% legitimate. There was no red flags on my end to think that it was not from them. So anyway, I had quite a few people reach out wondering about my crypto experience, and I had to tell them, I like crypto, but that was not me.
Yeah, and it's just another example of a fear tactic. You know, they're telling you you're going to get suspended if you don't take care of it. So, Carol Lehman, come on up and tell us about this guy that called you because he wanted to sell some land.
Can you use this one?
You can use this. You can use
Use
this.
that one? So hold off on our picture until I
Okay,
prompt you for
okay,
that.
okay.
Good evening, Carol Lehman from Hostetter Realty. How many guys have the name of Aaron here tonight? Raise your hand if you're an Aaron. Any Aarons in the room? Wow, surprised. Surprise. There's a couple in the community, yeah. A couple Samuels. So I had a really interesting experience. I'd been in the real estate industry for 24 years and got an got a text message in April from Aaron. Aaron reached out at 6:30 in the morning and said, he texted me and said, I have a third of an acre vacant lot in Lancaster County, and I'd like to sell it. And could you do that for me? Could you market it and sell it? And it's not unusual for me to get an early morning text message, so I responded, said, sure, absolutely, I'll call you a little later on. So I tried reaching out to him, I tried calling him, and he didn't. The first tip for me was the message. I got some beer, 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 you know, that I called the wrong number. I thought, well, that's really strange. So I texted Aaron back and said, Aaron, I was unable to get through. Is there something wrong with your phone? And he responded immediately and said, I was having some problems. Call me back. So I called him back. I tried again, and he answered actually, let me back up a little bit. I'm going to read you a couple of the text thread that took place. Let me read this to you. So the first message was, I found your number on Realtor.com. I want to sell my lot, da, 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 da. I said, I'll reach out. He said, here's the address. He gave me the address. It was in, I think it was in Paradise, or, no, it was in Smoketown. It was in Smoketown. He said, I kept trying, we kept going back and forth, and he said, I said to him, he gave me the address, I said, looks like you purchased it in 2014 for $78,000. And I said, is your wife Barbara? He said, yeah, that's correct. And I said, okay, yeah, it looks like I can help you out. And we went back and forth, and I asked him some information about if there's any on-site water or sewer. And finally, I said, why don't you give me a call, let's talk. So we got on the phone, and as soon as I heard his voice, I thought to myself, this doesn't really sound like the Aaron I was expecting to hear. Sounded more like the Aaron from possibly New Jersey. Nothing against New Jersey. But anyway, so at this point, I'm starting to get pretty suspicious. And I'm thinking this is a scam. But I'm thinking, what's his end game? He wants me to list a lot that I clearly know he does not own. And how's this going to work? How's this going to play out? Because he doesn't own it, and I just don't see how this is going to happen. But I kept playing along with him, because I thought, I'm going to see where this goes. And so I reached out to Rich Weeber, who you're going to hear from tonight, who owns Regal Abstract, and he is, I started giving him some information on it. He's like, oh yeah, this is a scam. So when we hang up the phone, he says to me, this was really interesting, he said, let me send you, would you like my identification? And I said, well, sure, I would like your identification, Mr. Aaron, and I won't divulge too much information about, well, you'll see it here when it comes up. So, Jake, we'll go with this one. Here we go. You can see, if you zoom in, which we're not zoomed in, but it says Aaron King. There he is. And not the Aaron King I was expecting. And but his address, 2348 Fruitville Pike, Lancaster. So this is pretty legit, other than the fact it didn't look like Aaron King. So, but anyway, yeah, go back to the other one. The other one I think is kind of interesting. I don't know if it was an AI generated photograph holding the license or how it was, but yeah, this is what it was. So we continued on. I continued with the messaging back and forth to him, and I said, I did notice when I pulled up the information in the public records, the lot had transferred hands the month prior in February, or March, I should say. And so the lot was actually owned by someone else other than this Aaron King, which is not Aaron King. So Rich, I don't know, you can possibly speak to this. I don't understand how it would have all transpired, how it could have went to closing, how if they did a quick closing, if I listed the lot, someone purchased it, went to for a quick closing, the title company didn't do their due diligence properly, would have it went to closing and this guy received the money? He says yes. So very, very interesting, but there you go. That's my story.
Okay, Rich, you can come on up. Rich is going to talk to us about some more of this stuff, as well as I think maybe some wire fraud and that type of thing. Do you have a preference for which picture is on the screen while you talk?
Jake, before you get started, she had said that she had read off some information to verify it. If you're ever in doubt, don't ever divulge any information. Always ask for information. Like, what is your wife's name? Don't say, is your wife's name Barbara? It's too easy to say yes. what is your wife's name, what is her date of birth, and that way you control the situation. Because if you say, oh, Barbara, your wife, yeah, she was born on February 2nd of 42, yep, they can just too easily agree. Always, always try.
Let me just tell you one thing at the end, which I got a huge kick out of this. I knew it was a scam, and I was like, I was playing along with it. At this point, I'm playing along with them. At the very end, I said, you know what? I see Barbara lives at XYZ. I'm going to run out. Since he told me he was out of town, I said, I'm going to run over to her house and just have a quick conversation with her, right? He says, oh, she's not home. We're together in Iowa. We're here until September. Could we do everything electronically? You can also send us a mail in Iowa. We'd sign and notarize. I'm like, whatever, he's in Iowa. New Jersey to Iowa.
Jay, can I add something?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a service you can get called Untitle Lock that will lock your title. It's very easy for people to do this.
Don't believe it.
You don't even know that the title's been transferred and take out loans and all that kind of stuff. I had a similar situation where I had someone ask for a picture of my ID and I was stupid enough to give them my driver's license. So it's very possible that I'm out there somewhere as well.
Yeah, this stuff happens. So Rich Weeber, one of the partners at Regal Abstract. I've got my other partners here, Adam, who does our IT and fraud security all that stuff. He's our CFO, and Freddie Vasta. Good to be here. This is my 44th year in the business, and I can tell you when I was a kid in the business, all this fraud stuff that we're talking about just did not exist. And it makes it much more difficult to service our people well when we've got to deal with this stuff, but it's a reality. So this situation with Carol, by the way, when we looked up that mailing address on Fruitville Pike, it's a corporate, it's a business entity, and they're domiciled out in Minnesota or Wisconsin or something like that. So he even went so far as to pick a good address that would give him further shielding. So these people know what they're doing. Our title industry, the title underwriters, have told us title agents that we now have to view every single vacant land transaction as if it's fraud. So that's the foundation from which we start on a vacant land transaction. Any of you own vacant land in here? Okay, so if you try to sell that vacant land and we start asking all kinds of questions and are getting really making you angry with us because we're asking all kinds of things, it's important anymore. We're supposed to now verify a seller with 2 forms of ID, not just one, to help make sure we got the right people. Just like with Carol, you can identify any piece of vacant land anywhere. The people aren't there regularly living. They wouldn't know if it's sold out from under one. They wouldn't know it's necessarily people are coming in and trying to do something else with it. It's just an easy target with vacant land. So we're looking for 2 forms of ID. We've got to review the format with other samples that we might be able to find at state or county or federal levels. We have to compare independently. So do research on the internet. Google the people, anything we can do to try to confirm that it's really the people. Check social media, see if we can find them on Facebook or anywhere else. Compare any photographs of them that we can find. I mean, it's a crazy amount of work that we have to do just to prove that you, the seller, really are the right person. So what are they after? They are certainly after trying to get to a settlement, pretending to be a seller. They'll do it either via electronic signature or remote documents that we're FedExing to them and they're sending back in FedExing. They're never meeting with us in person. They'll open up bank accounts using that fake ID. We'll tender a check or wire the funds to that bank account, and they're gone. The documents on the public record will look like you've just lost your property if you're the owner of that property. So just a few weeks ago, there was a realtor couple. I think they were based, Adam, were they based in Pittsburgh or something? Do you know? Pittsburgh, who somehow, a scammer got hold of them and had, 3, 4, 5 agreements of sale out on their property. And these realtors were astute enough, they found it out and they started getting some word and some notification from title agencies about these impending sales and were able to step in. But think about that. The scammer had the property under agreement with 3, 4, 5 different people, could have gone to 3, 4, 5 different settlements and made a killing on that. So this is just really real. Better than home title lock. You guys and investors, you get tax bills twice a year, right? Spring and fall. If you don't get your tax bill, the good Lord wasn't looking out for you on that one. Somebody has stolen your property and has got their name on the assessment records, and they're now getting the tax bill. So that's one first real key to find out. It's very simple. If you don't get a tax bill, reach out. Something's going on, okay? As to buyers, we were talking at Carol's office one time. They had some buyers coming in pretending to be interested in buying a property. It's like, well, what can a buyer be after? Well, what they'll do is they'll tender an earnest money deposit check. Might only be $5,000, maybe $10,000. Maybe to win that contract, they're going to give a $50,000 earnest money deposit check. It's no good. You know, it takes a couple days to clear that, and 24 or 48 hours later, they'll cancel the deal and give you their wire instructions to wire the money to them. You're now wiring your money, whether it's you or the title company, because the check's no good. They've just stolen $50,000 from you just like that. It's amazing. The biggest thing that our industry is facing in actual loss is when we go to, so much unfortunately of what we do is done through email. And when we contact the sellers to get information about where they have mortgages, and they tell us they've got a mortgage at, Chase Bank or whatever. So we reach out to Chase Bank via email typically or fax. And if our accounts have been compromised, we know a title agent recently whose account, one of his people clicked on a phishing email. The IT company that reviewed it afterwards gave it an A++. It was a phenomenal email. Most anybody would have clicked on it. And one employee in their firm, they had a scammer watching their computer. So as this employee was reaching out to Chase Bank to get a payoff, when the actual payoff came in, the scammer held that email. It wasn't released to the title agent. They changed the payoff statement to put in a different account number and a different address for Chase Bank. They then released that fake payoff to the title agent. The title agent went to closing relying on that number. This happened 2 transactions, $324,000 out the door. The title agent gets a call from the seller 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 weeks after closing saying, why didn't you pay off my mortgage? Well, I did pay it off. And as you go through, no, they didn't pay it off. That title agent was extremely fortunate. Their cyber liability was actually able to track down this situation. The scammer was apparently known by the feds, and the bank to which the funds were wired had a hold on the account. And the funds ended up weeks later coming back returned. That is an incredible success story. Get down on your knees and praise the good Lord, because that doesn't happen in our industry. But that is one of the biggest scams that we've got right now affecting us with real money loss. So something our industry is always concerned about. The other thing that's interesting is the sort of the same kind of thing. We have heard of situations, not seen this personally, where because of emails, and Joe averages who use Yahoo or Juno or AOL, those accounts have all been hacked. I think it was 2017, Yahoo announced that every single one of their email accounts had been hacked, and that had been years earlier when it was done. But, so hackers will follow real estate transactions. They're very sensitive to real estate. Big money, big opportunity for theft, big opportunity for loss. And they'll simply watch along on your Yahoo account and know when the closing is coming up. And when we send you wire instructions, we send them U.S. mail. I don't want anybody having any opportunity to see them otherwise, but lots of title companies will email those wire instructions out to you, the buyer, and your scammer will copy what looks like, it's called a spoofed email. They'll take what looks like our email, change one letter or something on it, create a new email account for them, and just before closing, the day before closing, hey, got to tell you, Bill, we were hacked yesterday. We had to create a new account. Here's our new account. Send your wire to this new account. and monies are being lost. We heard a story of a couple that was buying a home in Washington, D.C., $1 million home, and about 2 months before the closing, they were advised to send the wire in. So they sent the wire in. They didn't know anything about it. They went to the closing. Everything was concluded, ready to go. The title agent said, okay, now we just need your wire for the $1 million. They said, we wired the $1 million 2 months ago. Well, where did you wire it to? It was gone. Fortunately, they had an extra $1 million they could conclude the closing. So, I guess it's not all bad if you got a spare $1 million hanging around. But that's a lot of money to lose. But it happens. What's that? Yep. About 12 years ago, in the city of Philadelphia, there was a group that decided they could steal homes. 550 homes in about 8-10 weeks. How'd you do it? Well, they were smart. It wasn't high tech. They drove around to find properties that were apparently unoccupied. I don't know, maybe the people were traveling, maybe the people were sent to a nursing home recently, what have you. And it was low tech. They'd actually find who owned the property. They'd pay money. They'd get deeds prepared deeds on their own. They either had a fake notary or a dirty notary they'd forge the name of the property owners. They'd pay the recording fees and the transfer tax, 5%, I think, 5% in the city of Philadelphia, 5% transfer tax. Obviously, they do these at low dollar numbers, and they'd take title to the property. Then they would advertise on Facebook, anywhere cheap they could, and they'd meet up with people, and they'd get people, and they'd break into the homes, they'd get the homes, and they'd cry, I'm selling this property for $12,000 because it's worth $50, but Grandpa lived here, and I can't clean it out, so you get everything with the property. Cash buying only, you got to close in 4 days. So they stole 550 homes in one summer just with that slick, low-tech maneuver. It's just astounding, all the things that can happen in the world of real estate. One thing I want to share with you, this is not a fraud, just to explain a little bit about title insurance. Anybody ever hear of Joe Frazier? He was a boxer back in the 60s and 70s, pretty good boxer, a Philadelphia guy. In the early 1970s, he and a group of people bought about 200 acres somewhere down near the Valley Forge exit of the Turnpike. And in 1974, there was an oil embargo, bit of a recession. Joe's partners weren't really too fair with him, so they gave him $1 and told him to go away, and they would complete the development. Things weren't selling at that time anyway. Fast forward, 20 years, the land's been developed into 2 and 3 acre lots. There's called McMansions built on them. Homes are $800,000 to $3 million on it. The smartest thing Joe Frazier ever did was put his daughter through law school, and he always bemoaned the fact that he thought he was ripped off. He really wasn't treated justly and fairly by paying $1 and giving up his rights to this real property. And now it's valuable land that's all been sold off and people living there in their fancy homes. His daughter filed a lawsuit against every single homeowner in that community, claiming that Frazier's interests were never properly divested because he was cheated by his business partners. And it was litigated for quite a period of time. And when you go to litigate title claims like that, you're hiring expensive lawyers out of DC, out of Philadelphia. You're paying $1,500 an hour at least for those legal fees. And anybody who had an owner's title insurance policy was covered. Anybody who didn't have an owner's title insurance policy, you're paying the $30,000 to $60,000 to defend your title for the period of time that it took. At the end of the day, the claim was tossed. The court opined that Frazier's rights weren't there, but every single person who had title insurance, they were absolutely covered. Anybody who didn't, they were not covered. So there clearly is some value. As to the home title lock product, in Lancaster County, if you go onto the Lancaster Recorder of Deeds, it's lancasterdeeds.com. You can click around in there. You can find a thing called Fraud Notify. You can register your name, your email address, and anything that comes up under your name, you will get an email about it. That works well for a name like mine. My name is Weeber, not Weaver. If your name is John Weaver, you'll get 33 emails every single day, and you've got to figure out whether it's one of your real John Weavers or somebody else's. So it doesn't work for everybody, but it is a way to avoid that. Like I say, keeping hold of the checking their tax bills in the spring and the fall, making sure that you're getting those. And the last thing is, if you're buying non-investment property, you can buy a title insurance policy that actually covers you for that fraud, covers far more than the home title lock product. So there are things out there. Okay? Questions? LancasterDeeds.com, and you're looking for Fraud Notify. Yep, I don't think it pops up on the first page. I think you have to click Search Documents or something like that, and then Fraud Notify will be available for you. Okay.
If you get through with like stealing a lot like that, who's out the money at the end? The person that bought it, or the guy that had the land?
Good question. The guy that had the land is going to have to litigate to prove that he really didn't sell it. So he's going to be at least out time and litigation costs to reclaim his land. And the buyer's out the money.
Who does he litigate against?
What you're basically filing an action in the Court of Common Pleas called an action to quiet title to claim back that the title was stolen from you, and to have the court review the case and to give an opinion that your title truly was not sold, that you own the title. A court order will be filed in the Recorder of Deeds office, and title is restored. Unfortunately, you're going to be fighting against both the buyer and the and the fake seller as well. So, not an easy process. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Appreciate it. Okay, so everyone so far is in some industry that was involved with some type of fraud, whatever. Our next speaker, Kordel, he's going to take it for the rest of the evening. This is actually the business that he's in. He works with businesses, I'm not sure where all, maybe you can tell us, but this is what he does to help protect businesses against this type of stuff. This is actually a great example of what we keep talking about in this room of connections. I never met Kordel before he walked in the door tonight. This was a result of referral by John Lapp, and I think he's a really good fit for this topic tonight. So. He's got a whole bunch of slides. You're probably going to have to watch and listen fast, but take it away, Kordel.
Thank you, Jake. Pleasure to be with you all. Again, my name is Kordel Eberly. It's fun to be here. I live in Reading, close to Reading Airport, but my family is from East Earl, and so I have all fond memories of living on 625, and all my summers were down here with everyone I loved and know. So it's fun to be back. And we do a lot of business in there. So to give you a quick bio on myself, I'll make it short because I want to spend most time talking about this. But I'm an accidental entrepreneur. In 2008, actually 2007, I met my beautiful wife and fell in love and was oblivious to the financial crisis happening around me. And so I was working in construction. I had a hobby in computers and security. I was getting ready to propose. In the span of 2 weeks, I proposed, bought my first house, and got laid off, with no prospects of ever having another job in construction in the near future, because it was January of 2008 and no one was building houses. And so as I say accidental entrepreneur, I took my hobby, which was computers, IT, and security, and tried to make a career out of it. And God has been good, and 17 years later, it's stuck so far. So to Jake's point, we have a small firm. There's about 18 of us on the team. Main office is in Wyomissing, but then we have a New Holland office. You might see our cars here on Peters Road sometimes, as well as a Lebanon office. And we work primarily with small, medium businesses. Typically, our clients are in construction, manufacturing, professional services. We have 5 or 6 title companies we work with, so it's a good one for us to talk about here. And really, our work is security, IT support. We're the guys you call, hey, my printer's not working, we'll help you out with that stuff. But more and more of our work is in cybersecurity. And this is a topic I've become passionate about because we've gotten involved. We've been involved in a half dozen incidents for our clients, and they were really non-events. They were, hey, we got a bad email. Okay, we'll clear it up, and an hour later everything's back to normal. But we've been invited and asked to respond to a couple severe incidents for non-clients who got hacked, and those were grueling, multi-day, multi-week recoveries with hackers on the phone screaming at us, with voice changers demanding Bitcoin ransom payments, and no sleep for 3 and 4 and 5 days at a time. And so I've seen both how it is when you're prepared and how it is when you're not prepared. And let me tell you what, I like sleeping and I don't like hackers screaming in my ear. So I'm passionate about being ready, being prepared. And as Benjamin Franklin famously said, an ounce of prevention really is worth a pound of cure. And so we're going to talk about that. So this is kind of the agenda. I'll try to keep it quick. I love to be interrupted with questions, so you can just do that. If I'm talking too fast or you don't understand something, just interrupt me and ask a question. But let's talk about the hacker economy. We heard some great stories, real stories of wire fraud and transaction fraud and things gone bad. Why is it such a problem? How does this hacker economy work? We'll start just by talking about who hackers are. Who are they? There's not one profile of a hacker. There's really a couple different profiles, but the media has kind of glamorized this visual of a really secretive, super smart guy. They always wear hoodies. They're always in dark rooms. They don't like bright lights. They love lots of screens, and they type 1,000 words a minute, right? Their fingers go, and they probably use multiple keyboards. That's the image in our minds often if we think about a hacker. In reality, they're quite a bit more benign. Most of them actually pretty much just show up to 9 to 5. Might not be in New Holland or in Lancaster or even in the US, but they're probably working a 9 to 5. It might look a little less glamorous, a little more tight, cramped, and uncomfortable, but many of them are just trying to make a buck and make a living. And they fall into a couple of different kind of demographics. The first one is just a guy or a gal trying to make a living. Solo guy. Maybe he's in Cambodia. Maybe he's in South Africa or Uganda or Russia, and he doesn't have really good prospects, but he's kind of tech savvy and he has access to computer and the internet. And he says, you know what? There's no good way to make money here, but I've heard the West is filthy rich and stupid. I'm going to see if I can take their money. The second is, we call them hacker cooperatives. It's a handful of these guys who met up. Maybe they bumped into each other at the corner falafel place, or they met up over a gaming chat community, and he goes, hey, I recognize you. Aren't you the guy who's really good at phishing? Oh, yeah. And you're the guy who's really great at tricking people into things on the phone. And they form these cooperatives where they play to each other's strengths and they cooperate and they say, okay, you do that, I'll do this, I'll handle the wire fraud, and we'll split it even Stevens. And a little bit of capitalism happening over the internet or in their local communities. The third is this rise of organized crime. We don't talk about it a lot in Lancaster County, but organized crime, the mafia, the Yakuza, the whatever you call them, they've been running criminal enterprises for hundreds of thousands of years. Like prostitution, drugs, gambling, kidnapping. That's been the domain of organized crime the world over since the dawn of history. Well, in the 2000s, they've discovered that there's a new illicit enterprise that's really profitable, and it is cybercrime. And these guys kingpins in Russia and in Japan and in South Korea and North Korea are leaving off these other things they've been doing and hiring and recruiting smart young talent who's good on computers, putting them in front of powerful computers and saying, hey, you steal the money and we'll take a cut, but we'll make sure you're protected and you're taken care of and no one extradites you or prosecutes you. And so organized crime has become huge in running cybercrime operations and stealing money because they already have the infrastructure, they already have the leadership, they already have the connections. They just then find and recruit the talent. And the last and arguably the most disturbing and the most hard to evade is the organized and well-funded nation-state actors. These guys might actually be on the payroll of some foreign power, or they might not be. They might be outside of the official cover of any nation. You can think of a big superpower that we're not friendly with. They probably have these. But they're probably funded secretly or supported by a nation-state. These guys have the equivalent of nuclear arms in the cyber world. You and I probably couldn't stop them if they wanted to get into our bank accounts or into our email. The good news is they don't really care about your bank account or your email account, so they're not really after you, but we do have to be afraid a little bit because at some point, as real war breaks out, some of their tools might end up in some of these other guys' hands, right? Okay, so these are some of the actors that we face and we fight in the kind of cyber war. Where are they? They're all over the world, no particular place, but I will say, I'll kind of reiterate something I said earlier. You'll find concentrations of bad actors in places that have poor local economies, where there's not many viable above-board trades where they can make a living, and in nations and places that are not easy to extradite and prosecute for the U.S. North Korea, Russia, China, lots of deep Asia states, Kazakhstan, Cambodia, Myanmar, places that the U.S. cannot easily or cheaply bring the arm of justice to bear. They will find a stronghold there, and you'll find concentrations, but they are all over the world, including in the U.S. Why? Money. I mean, there's more than one reason. There's not only one reason, but I will start by some lesser reasons. There are actually quite a few ideological hackers who are actually, defacing and making statements of their hacking. Iran has a bunch of big hacking groups who are always, they're hacktivists, they're doing things, and they're shouting their slogans all over other websites as they hack. But really, yes, money is by far the number one reason. It's a way to make money, a way to make a living, and it's for much of the world. If you're not living in the West, and I say the West, the U.S., Europe, really North America and Europe. If you're not in North America and Europe, some of your most lucrative opportunities are actually illegitimate business like cybercrime. Okay? And so just the capitalistic opportunity for them, their best opportunity is buying and selling information and access. All right, so it's just business for most of them. They're not really emotionally into it. They're just trying to make a buck. And I have this kind of summary we say, I think this is a good summary to think about. Because it's just business, they're after money. The thing you have to think about when you think about cybersecurity and cybercrime is you have to think about what's their angle, what's their end game. You asked really well, like, what's this guy's angle? How is he going to turn this into money? And I can't always give you the answer, but there's this really simple phrase that I put together and said that hackers profit by using or reselling access and information. So that's what hackers typically are best at turning into money. Access and information have dollar amounts. And if they can use it themselves or resell it, they have money from it. And so something as simple and benign as a full name or a full name and an address actually has a dollar value on the dark web. There's this whole dark web I won't show you. I'll show you some screenshots in a minute. That's websites that you can't easily get to unless, I mean, you could, but you probably don't want to install Tor. I don't recommend it. There's a lot of things you don't want to stumble onto and you don't want to be found doing. But there's whole websites and forums devoted to selling, trading, exchanging information. You're always hearing about breaches. Has anyone ever got a notice that your information was breached or was exposed in a breach, or potentially you get a letter from your health care or your bank or something? It's happening all the time. If you haven't got one of those, let me just tell you in no uncertain terms, there was a breach in March of this year of a data broker in, I think it was in Utah. It was 3 billion individuals' records, including social security numbers. If you have a social security number and you're a U.S. citizen, there's a 99.9% probability that it is available, easily accessible on the dark web to anyone who wants to pay a couple bucks to get it. Okay? Your information is not secret. That is a hoax. It is not secret. It probably hasn't been secret for a while, but as of March of this year, it absolutely is not secret. Any hacker who wants it can get it for a couple of bucks. It's disturbing, but it's a real fact, okay? So let's talk about the economics in a little more detail. Everyone here is an investor or a business person in some regard, so you're always looking to make a buck. Let's talk about how this stuff actually turns into money. We'll play a little game here. I'm going to show some information and shout out a guess. Give me a guess on what you think something's worth. I'm a hacker and I got your online account to Google, Dropbox, or Microsoft. Any guess on what that might be worth? Probably a little less, but it could be, depending on what it is, anywhere from like 50 cents up to about maybe $10 or $15. If it's a really juicy, if you're a high power executive to a big company, it might be worth 50 bucks. But for the most part, we're talking a few dollars, so $5 is a good range. How about if I'm a hacker and I get your name, address, and phone numbers? 10 cents, good guess. We're talking buck or under, yeah, 50 cents, 25 cents, 10 cents is a good guess.
We used to have a free tool for that. It was called the phone book.
Yeah, right? Whatever happened to those things? How about sensitive media? I hacked in and I got every video and photo off of your cell phone or your wife's cell phone, audio recordings, I got all of it. What's that worth? Varies a lot by what it is, but if it's from someone famous, it's worth megabucks. If it's just from the average Joe, it depends what they have there. If it's a teenager who was really stupid about what they were taking photos of and sending, it could be worth hundreds of dollars. It gets ransomed really quick. Really varies, but all over the board. And believe me, I'm giving you general numbers. There's exceptions to every rule here. How about intellectual property, designs, blueprints, formulas? I broke into your architectural business and I stole a bunch of information. This one's all over the map. I won't even make you guess. This one can go anywhere. This can be anywhere from a couple $100s to millions of dollars. If you're I have clients in the military industrial complex. If you are a hacker and you get in and steal some designs for military defense projects, and you have connections in the Russian or Chinese government, that's a 7-figure payday, baby. That's big money. Now, you better be good at hiding, because we have some international assets who will be tracking you and looking to lock you really, really deep underground for a long time. But if you can sell it, that's big money right there. But if it's just commercial secrets, you have a formula, some recipes or something, it still could be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, or hundreds or thousands of dollars. Credit card numbers, this is a good one. I'll take guesses on what's a credit card number worth. Good answer, depends on the credit card. I heard $10. Typically $10 to $20 on the bottom end. So a consumer card, my personal Visa card, maybe $20. But if it's my business card, my Amex that I use for business that has a really high, or they claim no spending limit, I don't believe them, that's typically worth hundreds to thousands of dollars. And for a large one, they'll even run a split scam, where if I'm the seller, hey, I got this card, it's Joe's credit card, I know it's a business card, I know it has a high limit, I'm going to sell it to you, you give me a cut, you scam it, and I'm going to take 20% and they'll split it. Right? So it's a commission play. Bank accounts, Social Security numbers. Social Security numbers are worth typically $10 to $15. But now there's an interesting thing here where if I'm a guy who's stolen a bunch of Social Security numbers and Eli's stolen a bunch of names and addresses and phone numbers, and I got my guy here who's good with scripting to merge those two, and now I have a database of names, address, phone numbers, and Social Security numbers, that all of a sudden can be worth $100 to $150 a record, just by combining two things that were fairly inexpensive on their own, right? There's a good play right there. If you have some spare time and you want to get into a project, that's good money to be made right there. Again, you might want to vacation in Russia while you're running it. I don't advise running it from the US. Bank accounts, already mentioned in passing, this is often a split. If it's a personal account, maybe $20, $30. If it's a business account, especially if it's a business I can look up and verify that has been in operation for a while, that can be worth a commission split, where we say 10, 20% commission, you run it, whatever you get from it, if you can get 6 or 7 figures from it, we'll split it. And we have clients who have had 6 and 7 figure thefts. I shouldn't say clients, we've had prospective clients who've had those kinds of thefts. Yeah. So these are the real numbers, guys. These are the economics of it. This is why it's a big deal. Title companies are one of the most targeted entities, because what kind of transaction are you guys running through your title company? Big cash transactions, 5, 6, 7-figure transactions every day, all month long. And if I'm a hacker and I'm like, well, they're probably not going to fall for it, but if I can get one out of them this month, and if I'm living in Russia or Africa or Southeast Asia, how long does a $320,000 theft, how long does that set me up for? That's my life. I'm set for life. If I did that as a freelancer and I just stole $320,000 and I'm living in Southeast Asia, I can retire. I may never scam them again, but I don't have to. Now, if I'm in a co-op or something, I have to share that. I don't get all of it, but it's lucrative and they're targeted because they might lose 99% of the time, but if they win 1% of the time, they are set. It's the economics of it. It's pretty crazy.
How much can you protect your information by, say, putting things in trust, or having trust within layers of trust, within layers of trust, within layers of trust? So you get to a point where it looks like you own nothing.
I don't know that I feel prepared to comment on that. That's an interesting strategy. I don't think in the frauds and the thefts that I've been privy to, the theft was not maybe you guys can speak to this more, but the theft was not that planned out. It was more opportunistic. And so none of that really matters. There was a transaction happening or an opportunity for a transaction to happen, and they initiated it, and the hackers didn't care about all those details. They just said, here's a bank account number we found. But that would, maybe it's a separate conversation to have later. That's an interesting thing, but I don't know that I'm prepared to comment on that. But yeah. All right, the last thing, remote access. So maybe you haven't stolen information, but maybe I'm a hacker and I've gotten onto your computer, and I have access onto your computer, onto your network, onto your server, or I broke into your smart thermostat, and I'm living on your smart thermostat watching your network. What's that worth? A lot. Typically hundreds to tens of thousands of dollars. Oh yeah, I hate smart devices. Despise them. Don't get me started. We'll have a whole nother session on that. Well, you guys don't care. It's boring. But yeah, smart devices are the devil. So anything you can think of that is access or information has a dollar value, and you can find it. The dark web is basically a Craigslist or an eBay for information and access. And if I can find a way to get access into something that should not be publicly accessible, or information that should not be public information, I can sell it to someone. Someone will pay me for it. Because someone can parlay that into more access and more information via extortion or any number of different schemes. And premiums are always paid for fresh, validated, and bundled data. Can I show you guys some screenshots of some real things? I want to be careful of time because I want to have time for questions. Where's my phone? Watch. I don't have a watch. I should have a watch. I got time. If you guys get bored, just yell at me and I'll hurry up. I'm going to show you some screenshots of actual information for sale. Let's look at some instances. So this is a post, and if you're in the back, I apologize. The text is small. I'll read a couple things, but this is a pretty audacious hacker. This is a fresh one. This just came out a couple days ago. But a hacker had got into the remote access servers for 4 or 5 different companies, and they share the information here. This guy says, and this is one hacker crew posted all 5 of these. This one's a construction company, construction and civil engineering, doing $110 million of revenue a year with 1,000 to 5,000 employees. And he says they had a Sophos Cyber Protect security product. This one is similar. They had a WebRoot security product, which is garbage. Please don't use WebRoot. This is a smaller company with doing about $6 million in revenue. This one, we're using a better security product, but they were still breached $6 million in revenue in real estate industry. This is an oil and gas. And they're saying, hey, we have all these, and they list a couple more. All 5 of these were breached, and we're selling them, and they're offering them for sale. I share this slide simply to point out that a couple of these names are some of the biggest names in the security industry. So if you're in business or a business owner, please don't ever just put your trust in a product. Every single one of the products can be bypassed by a determined crew. But this is a fresh one. Let's look at another one with maybe a little more detail here. This was a hacker who posted, this first one was he just breached a doctor's office. Said, hey, I got 12 PCs and $6.5 million revenue doctor's office. They're running Windows 7, 10, and 11. Some computers even include employee personal logins and customer data. And he says, send me a direct message and I'll give you the price and a screenshot to prove that I have this. Okay. This one here says, hey, I have remote desktop access to a company doing $80 million in the US. And he's offering a bidding right here. He says, I ran Zoom services. Here's the stats in the company. These guys even use Zoom Info and D&B. Did you know that? Hackers love Zoom Info and D&B because they can look up the access they got and go, what is this? Is this Joe's Pizza Shop that probably doesn't have any money? Or is this Pfizer USA? And I have, a moneymaker to retire on here. So he's done Zoom Info, and he says this is their revenue, this is their employee size. He says starting the bid at $700 US, $200 increments. You can buy it now for $2,000, 24-hour deadline to bid. This is real access that someone was hacked, and this was available. And if you were a hacker and you wanted to get this access and turn it into a ransomware event, this was for sale, and someone did that. Nope. These guys, business is normal. Nothing has happened. As far as they're concerned, business is good. The world is a friendly place. Yep. Until this has been sold, and the guy who actually breached them hands it over to the guy who's going to do the next step. This is where, going back to our screen, we talked about the different actors. All these different actors, they're all in business together informally. Again, it's a dark capitalist society. And so one guy who's good at initial breaking in and accessing. This guy's really good at getting these RD web access things broken into, sells his information to a crew like Black Hat or Royal or Conti, who's defunct now, and they turn it into ransomware where they actually go after this business saying, hey, we got you now, pay up big or go bust. Yep. Show a couple more. We're not going to spend too many. This is a little bit different one. This guy. Yes. Yep. Yep. I'll talk about ransomware from who's ever heard. Is that anyone heard of ransomware before? Is that kind of a new term? Half of us. So ransomware in my industry is one of the more devious things. We're actually not seeing it quite as much in my practice. We're not seeing it quite as much just because we've really focused on really strong controls on it. We're seeing more business email compromise like you guys touched on, and we'll talk about that later. But ransomware is really dastardly, and what it is when a hacker gets access to your computer or your network, they'll do ransomware, which what it does is it encrypts all of your information. So every file, every photo, every document, everything on the computer will turn on and work, but anything you want to open, it'll just say, this is encrypted, contact us at this address or send us this money via Bitcoin wallet to unlock it. And if this happens on your personal computer, whoops, this sucks, this is inconvenient, but I'll move on. This happens to your business, and I'm going to share some stories. We'll share some real stories if we have time that we've been involved with. This can be a business-ending event. In fact, the stats coming out of the studies is that 1 in 3 businesses who have a ransomware event are out of business within 3 years. So it's a ransomware event is hackers breaking in, encrypting all of your information, and then offering it back to you for a fee. And in more recent events, they're additionally double ransoming by threatening to publish it to the internet if you don't ransom it. So depending on what industry, if you're in construction, maybe you don't care if that information is public. Like, everyone can look at the houses anyway, I don't care. But, if you're a doctor's office or an attorney's office, you don't want your sensitive files out there in the public internet. That would be a big deal.
Are these files that are like on the cloud, or are they
All of it.
documents?
All of it. Anything. All of it. Listen, the story I'm going to share, I'm going to tell you how even their backups were ransomed. Wow. Yep. So again, this one's a little different. This one was a guy who did a really good job breaking into email accounts. And so this guy had 1,300 email accounts he had broken into. And I think this slide is interesting because he offers them for sale, and he starts the bid at $250. It's not a real high bid, but it's interesting to me in that he actually tells you, hey, I did some screening, and there's no Russian, Singaporean, Indian, or .edu accounts in the logs. Why do you think this matters? Why do you think he announces that? They're not worth anything. Well, he's probably in Asia somewhere, and he doesn't want the Russians, the Indians, or the Singaporeans coming after him, and the .edus aren't worth anything. You're exactly right, Joe. Who's going to steal anything from students? They don't have anything anyway. So he's saying, not only is there 1,300 of them, but they're all pretty high value, and you're not going to get in trouble if you're in Asia and you attack these guys. Okay, I think it's interesting. Let's keep. I want to get to stories. This is the last slide I'll show from the dark web. This is a dark web site for instant purchases of access to breach systems. Okay, these are servers all over the U.S. and Canada, Quebec, Columbus, Ohio. This is actually in New South Wales, Australia, Ashburn, Virginia, Columbus, Ohio, and this is information and instant testing and purchase access to servers that have been hacked and breached. Okay? It's like the Amazon of the dark web. Buy now. You don't have to wait for shipping. It's instant access. 0-day shipping. Okay? All this is out there. This is real stuff, real screenshots, and there's endless amounts of it out there. Your information and your access is for sale out there. The question is, who's going to know it first, you or the bad guys who use it? All right. Let me share a couple stories. And we'll start with hopefully some that are more we'll start with a ransomware story. So this is the one I mentioned in passing. So we had a prospective client here in the county that great people. We had approached them about our services, like, we're good. No thanks. And that's fine. We respect that. And we heard through some connections that they had sent everyone home from work on a Friday morning. and then told everyone they couldn't use their email. And then Saturday and Sunday and Monday, they were told there was no access to anything, and Monday, no, don't anyone come into work. And Monday afternoon, I called one of the executives I had a phone number for, and I said, hey, what's going on? Do you need help? I don't really want to help, but you need help. And he said, well, we're doing this, 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 and this. And we have had enough experience with ransomware events. I said, okay, I appreciate you're doing things. That's not going to help. Can we help you? And so we had a conversation with the whole executive team. They brought us in. Tuesday morning, we showed up. And we started doing recovery. They'd gotten hit. We don't know exactly how, but we expect one of two ways. They had a really out-of-date firewall that was known to have insecure software on it. And they also had some custom-built software on the internet that could have been breached. And then a couple other things going on. So they could have gotten breached a half dozen ways. But one way or another, Black Cat / Alf V, it's a gang, well-known gang, had ransomware their entire network. And so the entire network, all the computers, the servers, the backups on the backup servers, pretty much everything. They had some saving graces in a couple points. They had one cloud storage that wasn't encrypted or ransomed. So they had some files on one cloud storage that was okay. And they had one backup that the IT guy, they had an IT guy who's a great guy. He's still there. I like him a lot. He's a good guy. He was smart and had been doing external backups to an external hard drive and just putting it in a shelf about once a month. And so he had a month-old backup. And their bacon was saved from that. So we helped them rebuild. And in about 48 hours, we had them back up and operational. But we were still fighting the hackers. The hackers were actively calling all executives and leaving threatening messages and voice changing over the phone, threatening them and demanding Bitcoin. We had DDoS attacks on the network, had internet drop multiple times because they were DDoSing our public side of the WAN. But we got them built back to snuff kind of in 24 to 48 hours. And then we start restoring data. Even the backup they had that was a month old, we had to still manually rekey in all the financial transactions for the last month. So they started manually rekeying transactions for a month of data. And this is a sizable company. And it took about 2 weeks so they were 100% back in an operation. And we figure, it's hard to get direct costs. It's hard to get full costs. But we figured there were about $100,000 in direct costs easily, maybe more. And easily $500,000 in indirect costs with all the lost time, lost production, work not getting done for a full week. And of course, all that keying of data was a mess. They didn't have any cyber insurance. They had a little bit of a bonus there. They had a rider on their regular general liability insurance that paid out $25,000. It's something. It was nice. They're a client. They're a great client to this day. Love them guys. Work with them really well. And they opt into all of our extra security protections now, and they do all the stuff, which is really good. And they have cybersecurity insurance, which I highly recommend. We're going to skip through this one. This is a little bit older one, Thanksgiving week, a couple years ago. Another prospective client who got breached by Emotet. And theirs wasn't too bad just because we caught it early. They called us because they were readying talks with us about getting our services. We were their first call. And it was Thanksgiving week, so they were already partially shut down for the holiday, and so we actually had them back up and running by the next full week, and their costs were only about $25,000. This is a very fresh one, and this goes right back to wire fraud. You guys talked about it, and so this is one I want to pause and give extra time to. On the back table here, I actually have some handouts that I encourage you guys to take. Well, the thing we're seeing most frequently right now is business email compromise parlaying into some kind of wire fraud or payment fraud. And so this is really important, and this is really hard to protect against. So we had a client right here in the area, manufacturer, that wasn't actually directly attacked. They're our client. They were not directly attacked. One of their clients who owed them 5 figures was attacked and was breached. Very traditional phishing email. Someone at my customer's customer got an email that said, I don't know what it said. I didn't actually see the email. Click here to do something. And did. And handed over their username and password to a hacker. The hacker then perused my customer's email and realized, oh, you owe 5 figures to company X here that works with Eberly Systems. We're going to do something with that. And they did exactly what was described earlier. They set up automated email rules to intercept communications with my customer and watched for communications about payments coming due. And then when they intercepted it and they blocked the email from actually showing up to the end user, and instead replaced it with one that said, hey, this invoice is due. You need to pay it right away. And by the way, we no longer accept checks. You need to pay via ACH, and here's our bank information. Well, they paid. My customer's customer paid. And my customer didn't know anything until they started to try to do collection. Like, hey, these guys are late. This is a regular customer. They're late. This is unusual. And they contacted them and had a couple emails back and forth with kind of nonsensical replies. And they finally got them on the phone and said, hey, we're trying to get through and figure out what's up with this payment. What happened to this payment? And my customer's customer says, we paid that 2 weeks ago. We had the whole email exchange, and you said to ACH it, and we paid it. And my customer said, oh, no, you didn't. We don't have the payment. This is an ongoing developing thing. My customer doesn't actually have their money yet. They can't do anything. Their insurance won't cover it because my customer wasn't hacked, right? My customer was not actually breached. My customer's customer was. But my customer's customer isn't laying on an extra 5 figures of cash to pay twice. And they didn't have insurance to cover it. And so my customer's out the money while they hope that their customer will true them up eventually. Again, there's a handout on the back table about this, and if we have time, we'll get to some practical things you guys can do to protect yourselves from this. But let's talk about one other one. This is a nonprofit. This is a customer, and this is probably of any of these one I'm most ashamed of. Nonprofit customer, great people, love them, work with them to this day. They're nonprofits. They're busy. They have really busy summers, and we're on their case because they were slow to adopt our security standards around multi-factor authentication. Do you guys all use multi-factor authentication? Oh, those are not near enough hands up. All right. It is a pain in the neck. So they were slow to adopt it, and we kept on pushing them. And finally, they said, okay, we hear you. We'll do it, but can we please wait until after the busy season? And we said, okay. Please do it ASAP. Well, we got a call from them in the busy season, and the executive director says, hey, we're missing 6 figures from our annuities. And we're trying to figure out what happened. And we looked into it. We found out they had been sloppy with their passwords, and they hadn't done multi-factor authentication yet because they were too busy to do it. And so what actually happened was the executive director had a business email compromise. The hacker got into his email. So this is my customer's email. I'm not proud of this, but got into my customer's email and realized that he was doing banking with this one bank and that most of their communications about the annuities was over email. And he went through his inbox and found a really old letter that the executive director had signed and sent to the bank years ago. And he took it and he modified it and he updated it and sent it to the bank saying, we are moving some of these annuities. I need you to wire these monies to this new account. Had a signature, did all this stuff. And the only thing I'll say is the bank were idiots. No bank should ever transact this kind of money this way. So this was egregious error. And when we get to the story, we'll close it with that. But they lost the initial theft. There was 3 transactions. The first one was like 30,000. The next one was like 90, and then the last one was like another 50. So it was almost $200,000 total. They caught it right after the third one. The FBI they didn't get FBI involved. They got the last one caught soon enough. They could reverse the final transaction, and they pulled attorneys in on the other 2. And I need to check with them. I don't actually have the end of the story, but my understanding was that the bank ended up coughing up the money because the bank had failed to follow due diligence and best practices on their part in confirming the transaction. But he was initially out almost $200,000 on annuities for a nonprofit that was already tight on money because he was reusing passwords multiple places that he shouldn't have been and didn't have multi-factor protection on his accounts. There was no cyber insurance or rider was available to cover that loss. We're going to skip the rest of these. We're going to bring it home. So what can you do to stay safe online? I have a whole bunch of more stories. I have 8 or 10 stories we can cover, but we're out of time. So what can we do to stay safe online? Here's some real basics for staying safe online. Passwords. You hate them. I hate them. I try to do away with them. My clients typically only have 2 passwords to remember, and so we're doing everything we can to make that easy. But as many passwords as you have, every single one of them better be different. And not just like one has a 1 on the end, and one has a 2 on the end, and one has a 3 on the end. They should be completely different. They should be random and different. They should be non-dictionary words. You can use phrases if you want, but don't just use a word. Use a phrase. Pick a song lyric or something. And really, they should be random enough that you can't remember them. And so I recommend you should use a password manager, which has a strong multi-factor authentication on it, and let your password manager do all the remembering. Because your password manager will make way better passwords than you will ever make, and it will remember them for you, and you can just remember your password manager password. That's really what I recommend. I don't have a strong opinion. If I have favorites, Keeper, 1Password, LastPass are all pretty solid. Bitwarden's decent. The best one to use is the one you will use. Yeah. Most of them have free options. I think LastPass is a free with some limitations on it, but even the ones that are paid are fairly inexpensive. So they can't be hacked directly. You can still be tricked into handing access over, but the good ones will have require strong unique password, and they require multi-factor authentication. They won't even let you use them without multi-factor authentication. And so the bar to hacking them is really high. So it's not that they can't be hacked. Yeah, well, like that, but not that. They're going to require you to use a very strong multi-factor authentication, like a physical token, like a FIDO key or a YubiKey, or a time-based factor or a push notification. Text messaging and emails can be intercepted and tricked, and hackers can get those. So they're going to, password applications are typically going to require you to use a phishing-resistant multi-factor method. And that's just kind of baked into them. They know that they're such a target for hackers. They have to require the strongest security. And so when you use a good one, they're going to make you do things really well. They can do physical key, yeah. So YubiKey is a physical multi-factor authentication token that is unphishable. I'm going to show you mine. Please don't steal it. It won't do you any good. You need my fingerprint too. That's probably the most secure multi-factor method you can use. Yes? You still have to sign into the password manager once a day, typically. Yeah, yeah, but then no, one time a day. Yep. 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 Set it up. Sign into it. Like on my phone, mine requires me to. Actually, I can unlock them on my phone with biometrics. But yeah, the initial sign-in is going to require all those methods, and then it's going to let you be more friendly. Yeah. Yep. All right, multiple factors. So not just passwords. If you have any kind of important information anywhere or any remote access to anything anywhere, you better have more than just a password on it. This is my number 2 recommendation for a reason. The number 1 is good passwords. The number 2 is multi-factors. If you have a bank account and it doesn't support multi-factors, get a new bank. If you have an email account that doesn't support multi-factors, get a new email provider. This is literally like if you're in Australia or parts of the EU right now, you can't do business there unless your service supports multi-factor. It's 2024. It's really, really unacceptable for you to be using a service or a product that has sensitive information in it and doesn't have strong multi-factor. I know it's annoying, but this is probably the number 1 thing you can do. Preferred methods are FIDO2 tokens, which is what I showed you. Like a YubiKey is a FIDO2 token. It's a Federal Information Data Objective 2 or something. App-based codes are also pretty strong. You know, if you have that, you install an app and it says, you know, your code is 03513 and it cycles every 30 seconds. That's pretty strong. Or app-based push. We like app-based push with some number matching. Text messaging or email is a fallback. It's better than nothing. But if I'm a good hacker, I can intercept any text message to you for about $20 or $30, and I can intercept email to you with just a little bit of extra work. So don't rely on email or text codes unless that's your only option. It is better than nothing. Distrust email. Email is the worst. Seriously, I get every single customer off of email that I can get off of email. If you're an employee at my customer and you don't absolutely have to have email for doing your job, you don't get email. Email is the number 1 way people get hacked. Okay? So I have 225 customers and 4,000 employees we support, and every day I'm sitting down saying, do all these people actually need emails? Could I give them Teams, or can they use something else? Do they actually need email? Distrust email. If you have to use email, it's less secure than a postcard in the mail. So anything that you wouldn't send on a postcard in the mail, do not email. Do not email social security numbers. Do not email bank account information. Do not email wire payment information. Do not email anything you wouldn't send on a postcard in the U.S. Postal Service. There is zero guarantees that the thing you email will not be seen by 1,000 people in transit. Now, I can tell you, if we're getting technical, I can tell you that most emails you send are probably encrypted end-to-end and probably aren't being read by other people. But there is zero guarantee. And you have to assume that every hacker in the world could have just seen that email you sent. US mail is great. Or use people's secure online portals. So these guys here in Title probably have their own secure portal of some kind. You guys use Quali or something. So do business with people who have secure online portals, or use a secure encrypted email. Microsoft, all of our clients with Microsoft would have an option in Microsoft to do encrypted mail. When you do an encrypted email, it doesn't actually, well, there's a couple different ways to do it, but when our clients do encrypted email, it sends a notification to the person on the other side that they have a secure email. And if their system supports it, it'll unlock it automatically. And if the system doesn't support it, it'll give them a link to go to a secure portal to view it. So there is such a thing as secure email. It costs extra and most people don't have access to it. But just do business with organizations. Most businesses that need sensitive information from you have a secure portal or secure way to exchange that. All of your CPA firms have some kind of portal where you can sign in with a sign-in protected by a strong password and multi-factor authentication, and can give them the photo ID and the social security number and things that they need. So anyone who's collecting that kind of information has a secure way to get it from you. And if they don't, you should probably find someone else to do business with. Not really. A VPN solves a few problems but introduces new ones. So no, not really. It's just as likely with a VPN that someone else is inspecting all of your traffic that you're sending over it. That's a loaded one. I love hate Google. Google has a great, very strong stance on security, and the worst stance in the whole world on privacy. So they claim no one else in the whole world can see your stuff, but they're going to peruse it at their leisure. So, and sell it, yes. So it's better than Yahoo and AOL. That's probably my stance. Comment right there, links and attachments are the #1 most common way people get hacked. #1 by a wide margin, like 83% or 85% of all breaches start with an attachment or a link in your email. Again, email's the worst. Please don't use it if you can get away from it. And if you have to use it, distrust every single email and every single link.
I always say, if you don't know what link is, do not click on it.
100%.
How important is that, and what? Okay, so we all understand if you click on a link and enter a login or password information, that's a dead giveaway. Just clicking on a link, what is the risk of that?
Very nuanced question, but a good question. Jake just said, what's the actual risk of clicking on a link or opening an attachment? If your computer is completely up to date, has great security software on it, is well managed by a professional firm, there's very little risk of clicking on a link. My customers could click on links all day long, and there's like a 1 in a million chance of something getting through. But on your personal computer or on many of your computers, even at work, there's a very real risk that a link you click parlays pretty directly into some kind of vulnerability execution, and your computer being infected with little more, either nothing more or very little more than just that click. So if you have reason to believe that your security is like in the top 5% of all computer security, you might roll the dice and gamble and click a link. But if you're not, like, don't do it.
What about your
Smartphone.
and your Apple products? Are they any different than your?
Yeah. So that's an interesting question. Macs or Apple products? So iOS, the mobile phones. You can test some links on iOS is pretty strong, and Apple's really aggressive with security updates, and so they're going to make your iPhone stay up to date. So if you want to live dangerously, click a link on your iPhone, but don't add any information to it. Mac is interesting. Mac is is always been assumed to be more secure than PC, and I would say it largely has been. But Mac has also had like a 500% increase every year in like the last 3 or 4 years in the number of vulnerabilities and attacks against it. And so I always say to people, it's like if you're a hacker and you're in this for the money, and 95% of the world uses Windows and 2% uses Linux and 3% uses Mac, who are you going to target? Windows. Well, now that Mac has like 10% market share, hackers are actually targeting it. So it's had less vulnerabilities, and so you could argue it's more secure. I would just argue it's been more obscure. So, but iOS is a little better because Apple very aggressively manages updates on it, and it's hard to run an outdated iOS device. But still, it's dangerous. A little bit, but not a lot. It's a little bit, but not a lot. It's all bad. So, I mean, I don't get excited about slightly less bad. That doesn't really excite me. Very, very low opinion of it. Very low opinion of it. Most of the free security software has been acquired by or is funded by foreign governments in some way, shape, or form, and has had their own vulnerabilities found. So it's better than nothing, but I don't have a very high opinion of it. So if you're a personal user, some of the best things you could buy would be like Bitdefender makes a really good, affordable home product, and they're a world leader every year. I'm not sure if SentinelOne's a great product, CrowdStrike's a great product. I don't think either of them sell to consumers, but CrowdStrike and SentinelOne would be great options if you can buy it. I'm honestly unprepared to answer that. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. No. So let me re-clarify that statement, because you're right. I'm talking pie in the sky. The reality is you probably can't get away from email. What I'm saying is anytime you have the option to, get away from email. That's what I'm saying. So like inside of my customers' businesses, as an example, Teams or Slack are internal messaging options that have no exposure to the outside world. You can communicate inside the entire company, and no one from outside the company can communicate with you. And so there's no external communication. You can assume, unless someone's actually already breached an account, all that communication is internal and secure. And so we give email to people in sales and customer service, and people who actually need to communicate with the outside world. But everyone on the plant floor, the shop floor, out in the field that just communicates with the office, we get them off of email. You just don't use email. Yeah. Yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, anything, even just going back to more phone calls and text messaging. Just, again, or if they have email, we also have clients who give everyone email and just block outside email for people who don't have to communicate with customers and vendors. That's another way to do it. Yeah. Sorry, guys. I know we're running. Do you want me just to shut down, or I have like 2 more slides with suggestions, or I can just end? Okay. I want to honor everyone's time. Secure devices. Computers and smartphones should be running commercial security software. Bitdefender is not that it's the best one. I'm not saying it's the best one. I'm saying if you're a personal user, you're not running a business, you can't buy 5 or 10 licenses. Bitdefender is one of your better options. Symantec used to be good, but I wouldn't use them anymore. If you can buy, if SentinelOne or CrowdStrike will sell you their product, buy it. That's better. Operating systems should always be up to date. Please, you should not have Windows 7 or Vista, or you really shouldn't have Windows 10 after October of this coming year. If you're on Mac, you should be on a modern Mac version. Android, iOS, same kind of things. Mobile devices, they should be up to date reasonably. Was there a question? Okay. Back up your data offline. Just assume that at some point in your life, all the data that's important to you on your devices is going to get ransomwared or locked up or deleted. And so if it's really important, have a copy that's not accessible on the internet. A copy that's on an external hard drive that's unplugged and sitting in a drawer or in a fireproof safe. I tell my dad's on his computer all the time. He's a pastor, and he's always studying, and he has all this valuable information he could never do without. And I tell him, Dad, once a month or once a quarter, put that on a USB drive and throw that in the drawer and never touch it again. If it's that important, make sure that no one who gets into your computer could ever do anything with it.
So that company that was hacked that backed up their data once a month and stuck it on a shelf,
Yep.
and it was mighty inconvenient having to put in a month's worth of work, what would happen if they didn't have that at all?
That is the question, isn't it? They would
You recreate?
probably not be in business. Yeah, 100%. Yep. And then social engineering. So I'm going to probably close with this slide. Social engineering. Hackers are con artists. That's what they are. Some of them are super smart and just break through things, but for the most part, hackers are con artists. So just be aware of unexpected contact. And this came up before. The guys did a great job highlighting this, but just anything that's urgent financial, urgent legal, urgent tax, anything that requires immediate action, that should just be setting off a red alarm in your head. Anyone who's saying this is urgent, this can't wait, this needs immediate attention, this, just that should be an automatic whoop, 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 whoop. When's the last time you had something truly important and life-changing that couldn't wait for a letter in the mail? I mean, things happen, but they typically happen with people you know and trust. They don't typically happen from some random person who calls you, right? If my wife calls me and says, Kordel, you have to right now come to the hospital because something happened to our kid, like, okay, but I know my wife. If some stranger calls me and says, Kordel, you have to right now email us, transfer a Bitcoin to us or your child, no, okay? Most important matters can still be resolved via U.S. Postal Service. And I would just offer the observation that I'm not going to say never, but in my almost 20 years of being in this business, I can't think of any significant events of fraud that happened through the U.S. mail. There were some minor ones, but mail is both too slow for hackers, and most of them don't have good access to it, right? Like we already talked about where these guys are. Most of them aren't in the U.S., so most of the guys that I deal with, at least, they're not going to use the U.S. Postal Service. So one of the easiest ways that I'll just shut someone down is say, if this is important, you need to send me a letter, certified letter if you want. If it's that urgent, you can certify it. And typically, that's a really easy way to get out of something. That's it. I'll leave you guys with that. There's my contact information if you want it. The last slide I'll put up has a QR code. I tried to tailor this presentation. Yes, sir. Good. No, that's not off topic. I don't have a strong opinion. I'll tell you that I'm older than I look, and I'm suspicious of those. I have PayPal. I have PayPal, but I think they're decent services, but I think like anything else, it comes down to how sure are you that you're communicating with the person you think you're communicating with. So I don't think the services are inherently insecure, but I think we need to raise the standards of verification before we're sending money, no matter what the method is. Yes. That's a great idea. I love it. Yeah, test amounts. That's a great idea. Think about that when you're linking up a bank account, they often do that too. They'll say like, we sent 2 small transactions, please verify the amounts. That's a great idea. I like it. Very practical. Thank you. Yeah. Yes. I was asking for it. The first thing that's going to happen when someone breaks into your email or breaks into your computer, the first thing they're going to do is going to run an info stealer. It's a little script that's going to capture all the information of value for your computer. And one of the things it's going to dump is all of your passwords from Chrome or Edge or whatever your browser is. Yeah, don't do it, please. It's very convenient, but a password manager is just as convenient, but it won't dump your passwords when an info stealer gets on your computer. Yeah. Yes.
I use my cell phone a lot for email and everything. And you mentioned iOS is pretty good, but you mentioned like Bitdefender for desktop computer.
Yeah.
I use it at home, not just for my personal
Yeah.
business a little bit sales.
Yeah.
For a phone, is it good to have something like
Yeah.
that?
So if you have an Android phone, I definitely would put Bitdefender or an AV product on it. Be careful though, because there are some scamming ones on there. On iOS, I don't think iOS even permits it. I don't think it's a thing in the iOS world. So just make sure it's up to date. Install every update every chance you get. If your phone gets sold, you can't get updates, please replace the phone. Make sure encryption features and screen locks and stuff are turned on. But an up-to-date iPhone is one of the reasonably secure devices, one of the best secure devices you can use. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So I tried to tailor tonight's presentation for kind of the individual investor operator. Again, my core practice is for small, medium businesses. So that's my information. Feel free to email me. Happy to discuss and answer questions. But then I'll leave you with this. Our typical content, typical presentation is targeted a little more towards businesses of a 10, 20, 50 person size or larger. And that QR code will give you just a place to, you can enter your information and sign up for our newsletter. And then also that'll immediately give you a really nice infographic with our 10 cybersecurity basics for small businesses, which I think is very practical. Again, if you're a sole operator and you work by yourself, it might feel a little bit over your head, but it's quite practical for a business. And I am done. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to be with you. Happy to hang around and talk if you have more things you want to discuss.
Thanks so much. Wow, I told you we're probably all going to be a little freaked out, but I didn't think it'd be that bad. I know one of the biggest takeaways for me, just a practical thing, is in the line of passwords and how I store them. And the password managers that you mentioned, do you have to do a separate one for your phone and for your laptop, or it can be one that works across everything?
The benefit of it is you can set it up once, install on both devices, and then
Yeah.
it's really seamless and secure.
Yeah, if you would see how I manage my passwords and how similar most of them are, you would probably.
I mean, I can tell you more stories if we wanted to. We don't have time, but I can tell you stories about that.
Yeah, wow. Okay, well, that's a lot to think about. Do you have a question here?
Several years ago, I wanted to take pictures off of
Yeah,
watermark. They put it a listing of treasuries,
yeah.
and they got people to do it for money.
Sure. I see. Interesting.
That's actually fairly common. There's actually software now that will remove the watermarks. So we use dark watermarks,
Can't win, man.
light watermarks, and fixture. So far, we haven't had that. But yeah, it's harder.
Wow. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you again, Kordel. That was amazing. That was a lot of good stuff. Important announcement for our next meeting. The first Wednesday evening in January is January the 1st. And most of us probably would not consider that to be the best day to spend an evening here at a real estate meeting. So as of now, the plan is to meet on Thursday, January the 2nd next month. And I'll try to remind everyone a couple times of that. But next meeting, Thursday, January the 2nd, instead of Wednesday, January 1st. So thank you all for coming out. Catch up with someone, get to know someone that you don't know, and make some new connections.